Okay, so what if that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
that sense of not quite fitting in, that little nagging voice saying there's got to be more to life than, well, this, what if that's not some kind of flaw, but actually a signal, a really powerful one? Today on the Deep Dive, let's unpack a really fascinating source that looks right into this pretty universal experience. It's about the search for deeper meaning, especially when the world mostly gives us, superficial answers. Our mission here is to pull out the key insights from this material to help you, if you've ever felt this way, understand the journey a bit better and the perspectives offered. Because our source has this compelling way of looking at our current global moment, this time of transition, and this very personal hunt for authenticity.
Yeah, and what's really intriguing here, I think, is just how universal this feeling is. It really resonates. And the source doesn't just mention it. It kind of speaks directly to this growing number of people, especially younger folks, who are asking really fundamental questions, about life's purpose, about the structures we live in.
The big stuff.
Exactly. It frames it not just as like an individual thing, but something bigger, more collective happening right now.
It really does. The source jumps right in, setting the scene by saying our world is in a huge moment of transition, of change in every sense. It talks about this widespread questioning globally of all sorts of systems, social, political, economic, leading to what it flat out calls a crisis. And what really jumped out at me is the focus on young people asking those deep questions. What's the meaning of all this? Why are we even here? Where did we come from? Where are we going? What is the purpose of life? And the source is pretty clear that the answers aren't easily found within the current setup.
Precisely. And it's these people, the ones the source actually calls the different ones, that it seems to be reaching out to. It describes them as feeling, well, displaced, like a bird out of the nest, or maybe even feeling like extraterrestrials here.
Oh, extraterrestrials. That's a strong image.
It is. It's talking about people who genuinely feel they don't fit, maybe struggle with, the usual social stuff, can't just follow the norms or patterns easily. People who often don't really align with the standard political boxes or religious systems either. And what the source suggests is that these individuals, these different ones, they're searching, they're seeking a path, different answers. They want to awaken to a purpose, a sense of life based on their authenticity, not just what everyone else tells them to be or do.
Yeah, and maybe you're listening and nodding along right now, recognizing some of that in yourself, that feeling of not quite belonging, or just this deeper hunger for purpose beyond the 9 to 5. The source really validates that feeling. It also says, interestingly, that only a relative few are incansably searching for knowledge that has often been hidden from humanity. So it's not just a feeling. It's presented as an active quest.
It really is. It's a powerful way to acknowledge something that maybe many people just push down or ignore. And the source basically argues that this feeling, this being different, is often the first step, the doorway to a much deeper kind of self-discovery.
Okay, so that deeper self-discovery, it often means figuring out where our sense of self even comes from in the first place.
Yeah.
And our source has a really interesting take on how our identity gets built, like right from the very start. It talks about how, from gestation through childhood, family, school, friends, media, all these external things shape a personality and an identity, always focused outward.
That's right. And here's where it gets kind of subtle. The source suggests that while some of this input does awaken our latent tendencies, our real authentic nature, other experiences, unfortunately, tend to distort and build a false identity about ourselves.
Distort?
Yeah. And this creates what it calls a schism, a split, or duality. We end up feeling like two separate people inside, kind of pulled in different directions.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because this conflict, this feeling like two people, the source presented as the root of a lot of suffering. You've got one side, that's your authentic self, your true tendencies, what just feels real inside you. But then there's this other side, the identity kind of built for you by the outside world, family, society, religion, school, politics, media, all of it. And the source calls this conflict a neurosis, not necessarily clinical, but like this deep psychological tension. And it claims this tension drives us to just spend our lives seeking pleasure and fleeing pain, just coping. It suggests most of us end up identifying with the character the world wrote for us, not our true self. Like the world's a blackboard and everyone else gets to write on who we are.
Which naturally leads to the question, well, how do we break out of that if it's built from the outside? The source points to adolescence. That's often a key time for the different ones because it says that's when consciousness of who we are comes to the surface.
Right, the teenage rebellion phase.
Yeah. Exactly. It often shows up as rebellion
Mhm.
or joining groups, tribes, trying to forge some kind of identity, sometimes just to get away from the one the family gave them. And what's kind of insightful, maybe a bit tough, is the source notes that even parents who often felt lost themselves can unintentionally pass on this sequence of re-education and distortion of our origin.
Wow. So it's like a cycle.
Kind of.
Yep.
It highlights how tricky finding real identity and purpose is. It even says that, great religions, philosophies, and ancient masters only ever found a part of this knowledge. And it claims a lot of that got distorted and manipulated over time anyway.
So if you've felt that internal battle, that push and pull, the source is basically saying, yeah, that's part of it. That's the awakening starting. And to really bring this home, the source shares this really powerful personal story. The speaker talks about feeling different right from childhood, always questioning things like death, getting old, why nothing lasts, looking at the stars and wondering, who made this? Why are we here? But finding, society just didn't have real answers.
No easy answers there.
Right. He apparently questioned teachers, science teachers, religion teachers, which led to him being seen as a problem or a danger, the ugly duckling, the black sheep. And the source, while telling this, adds a warning. That kind of rebellion, if it doesn't have guidance, can sadly lead down destructive roads, drugs, alcoholism, or violence.
That's a crucial point. The search needs direction.
Yeah. And then it pivots to this bigger claim. It suggests there's a hidden government or an occult system that deliberately dangles these fleeting possibilities for happiness. External stuff, temporary things, possessions, looks to keep us attached, keep us distracted from the deeper truths. Especially, it says, the fear of death. That's a pretty bold claim from the source.
It is a very bold idea, yes, this concept of a sort of centralized power or system manipulating history. But if we zoom out a bit, that personal story really highlights how deep emotional crises like the speaker had after a major loss often act as the trigger, the catalyst for this intense self-questioning.
Right, the breakdown leading to a breakthrough sometimes.
Yeah, perhaps. The source argues life's real purpose isn't just, get rich, get married, retire. It should be a celebration that we find by discovering who we are inside. So the speaker's journey, driven by all this questioning, meant going inward, challenging authority, hitting the libraries, searching for knowledge. And eventually he describes having these transcendent experiences, which for him proved there were other realities beyond just this 3D world, the physical world we see. This led him to a pretty extreme phase, 7 years living almost like a monk, thinking this reality was just an illusion. But ultimately, he realized he needed balance.
And his return is really key, isn't it? He realized it wasn't that the world itself was inherently bad, but his conclusion, according to the source, was that a centralized power had manipulated human history. So he came back to society, became a psychologist, aiming to bring light, knowledge, and guidance. And he found others on the same path, which proved he didn't need to be totally isolated. His realization was, as the source puts it, you need to be in the world without being of the world. And the source uses this metaphor. Humanity has learned to be characters in a big play, forgetting they were actually actors with their own independent lives. This occult government or system, the source claims, keeps us enslaved by reinforcing these roles, trying to fill that inner emptiness we feel. So, okay, understanding this framework from the source, what does this actually mean for you if you're feeling some of this?
Well, it leads directly into what the source calls a revolution of knowledge. It argues pretty strongly that the real answers aren't going to come from the usual places, conventional education, politics, the economy, media, even established religions. Because in its view, these systems are actually designed to repress the different ones.
Repress them?
That's the term used. These different ones are described as special people who came to transform the world, and their awakening is seen as vital. But the revolution it talks about isn't violent. It's not about political movements in the usual sense. It's through knowledge, through the search for truth. It claims millions of people are awakening right now, and they need to connect, not to form new rigid groups or religions, but just to share independent, non-manipulated information. The goal, as the source sees it, is finding real life hidden behind what it calls this Truman Show illusion.
Wow, Truman Show illusion.
Yeah.
That really paints a picture, doesn't it? Of feeling like you're in a constructed reality. Okay, so the source doesn't just diagnose the problem, it suggests a path forward. Practical steps for liberation. First, it says we have to know ourselves, question everything, and seek answers beyond how things apparently are. Like, turn off the TV, look for independent sources.
Right, active seeking.
Then, it brings in this concept you hear in a lot of metaphysical circles, vibrational frequency. For anyone not familiar, the basic idea is that everything, including our thoughts, emotions, our state of being, operates at a certain energy frequency. And the source states that everything we do for our body, mind, our whole state should aim for higher, faster vibrational frequencies.
And why? What's the benefit of that, according to the source?
Well, it claims higher vibration sharpens perception, awakens hidden faculties like intuition, insight, dormant abilities we might have. It even suggests it can help us access cosmic memory, which is this fascinating idea from various traditions, like a universal library of all knowledge and experience we can tap into.
Okay, so raise your frequency, enhance your abilities.
That's the idea. Conversely, the source claims that governments, industries, media, and religions actively try to lower our frequency, to disconnect us from our essence. And how? By keeping us stuck in low vibrational frequencies. Through things like unbalanced emotions, toxins we ingest, lack of proper rhythm, sleep, exercise. It even suggests, quite dramatically, that leaders want us vibrating low so that certain technologies, and mentions nanotechnology, radio waves, can influence our brains more easily, making us, quote, slaves to the system.
So the path out of this matrix or power game, as the source presents it, is quite involved then. It's a multi-pronged approach. The source lays out these steps. 1, actively work on your vibration balance, emotions, mind, physical health.
Okay.
2, free yourself from all toxins, both physical and maybe mental.
Right.
And seek out what genuinely brings health and life.
Right. Be conscious about what you take in.
3, actively seek self-knowledge and that hidden knowledge I mentioned. 4, work on increasing brain vibration and frequency, which connects back to the first point. And 5, develop discernment, the ability to make conscious, independent choices, to see through manipulation.
That's a lot to work on.
It is, and it adds a really important caution, especially for the different ones. Once you start gaining knowledge or feeling this sense of purpose, there's a potential trap. Ego, feeling superior, like you have all the answers, it stresses humility. Being open to the idea that knowledge is constantly updated, because it argues so much of it, even in these awakening circles, can be fragmented or distorted.
Right. Stay curious, stay humble, don't think you've reached the final answer.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process of discovery.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've taken a deep dive into this source that explores a really profound journey, questioning the status quo, seeking your authentic self, your purpose, in a world that often seems to hide it. The source makes this powerful call really an invitation to anyone who feels different. It urges you to embark on this quest for knowledge, for self-awareness, to make a conscious shift in how you see and interact with the world, guided more by your inner compass than by external directions.
And building on that, this journey, as our source describes it, it's not just about your own individual awakening. It implies something bigger, a potential collective shift. So here's a thought to leave you with. What if the very act of seeking your true self, of understanding your own inner world, of consciously working on your own vibration, as the source suggests, what if that is the most profound contribution you can actually make to changing the world around you? Maybe consider how some of these ideas resonate with you, how you might apply them. Keep questioning, keep seeking your own unique path. Perhaps that's where the real transformation begins.